Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to show you how to make an Arkansas toothpick. So what you're going to need first is, of course, the coon pecker. This is the bone right under the hide of the coon. When you go to skin the coon down, this will be sticking right out and you can just pull it right off of there. Really easy. It's a very hard bone. You can't miss it. It's got that little nub there on the end of it. So get that out of your coon, and once you do that, you're going to need to get as much of this flesh off of it with a knife as possible without scratching the actual bone.
A few moments later.
Alright, so I got mine skinned down, as you can see, pretty well. There's a little bit of meat there and a little bit there, but that's plenty good enough for the next step. And if you can get it cut off, don't cut your bone off. You want this little round piece of bone here. You'll feel it's round there. If you cut that off, then that's going to expose all the fibers in the bone, and it's going to be all brittle, and it'll never dry out properly. So what you want to do is just cut the meat off to where it's kind of like a sock. And then get you some pliers on the meat and pull it, and it'll kind of just pull off of that bone like a sock. But again, you have to be very delicate with it, otherwise you'll break the bone. The bone isn't so strong when it's first out of the coon because it's pretty soft, and if you puncture it in any way, it's pretty much ruined. So after that step right there, after you have it down to the meat, you want to take this, you want to get you a jar that'll cover it, and I filled mine about half full of water. Then you want to take some bleach and fill it up the rest of the way with bleach. That bleach is very strong stuff. You don't need a lot of it. Alright, so I got it all the way filled up far enough to cover it when it's sitting in there. Now you just want to stick it in the bleach. I like to stir mine up a little bit first. Set in the bleach, just like that. You can see it'll start kind of bubbling and fizzing around all that meat. And in about 24 hours, this bleach will completely dissolve all of the meat off of it. It'll be clean white as soon as you pull it out in about 24 hours. So right now, you can see outside, it's starting to get dark. So I'm only going to have to leave mine until the morning. So yeah, there we go. You can see them bubbles in there. All that stuff swishing around. That's the meat coming off of that bone there. It's turning into tiny little particles. All them white things floating, that's the meat. So, yeah, that's second step. So, I'm going to put this on a shelf and go eat some dinner, go to bed, and get up about 8 o'clock in the morning. Right now it's about 5 o'clock. About 8 o'clock in the morning, this thing's going to be pretty much done. If I think it needs a bit more, you could have it sit 2 days if you want to, but it usually doesn't need to sit that long. You could probably have it set 24 hours and it's about good, depending on how much meat you have on. You don't want to have a lot of meat, because if you have too much meat, it's going to take forever to come off, and it ain't going to completely get all the meat. It'll only get those little thin bits of meat and fiber that's still on the bone, just hanging on the ends. And so you want to make sure you mostly clean the pecker before you put it in the bleach. So yeah, anyway, I'll put this thing up and see you guys in the morning. Alright guys, it's the next morning, and as you can see, it has been completely whitened. It's been sitting out there on the porch in this bleach all night, and as you can see, there's just a teeny little bit of red on the tip of that. But everywhere else, this tip here, it's all completely gone, perfectly white. Completely white and pretty. Now, next thing you'll need to do, this bleach is going to completely disinfect this by sitting it this long. So next thing you want to do is I suggest you go up and wash it out with soap and water, and just rub it real hard with the soap and water, get it really clean. And then after you do that, sit it in some hydrogen peroxide for about 5 minutes or something, in a little thing of hydrogen peroxide. And then dry it as completely dry as you can get it. and then I suggest putting up behind your wood stove. If you don't have a wood stove, then you can just hang it up wherever it's going to be the warmest and driest for the most amount of time. It needs to sit back there and dry out for probably a good 2 or 3 weeks before it's going to be ready to use. Alright guys, so it's been about 2.5 weeks since I hung that pecker up behind the stove, and as you can see, look at the color on it. It's completely changed color. It's not white anymore. It'll look kind of yellowish, kind of grayish at the tips maybe, but it's going to look real yellowish. So that means it's fully dried. It's not fully dried if, like this one, you can see how it's got a bit of white right there. I'll circle that there for you. See that white? Well, the white separated from the yellow. That means that that little spot hasn't finished dried yet. So this one actually isn't ready to sand yet. This one is, because it is completely discolored. There's not a single bit of white left on it. And this one's actually kind of cool. Look at the size of this one. This one we caught on a coon about 4 days later. Look at the size of that one. That would be a nice toothpick. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this pecker here. I'm going to need me a piece of sandpaper right there. And I'm using a piece of P80 grit, because that's the lowest grit I've got. And I'm going to take this pecker here, and I'm just going to start rubbing it on this sandpaper down on the edge until it's done. Now, normally I wouldn't be doing this. Normally I'd be using an orbital sander, or a belt sander, or any other type of electrical sander. But as you can see outside, there is snow outside, and the electricity is completely down, which means I'm going to have to be using manual labor. So let's get to it. Alright, so we're just going to be sanding this thing out until it is completely rounded over. You know, just move it whatever angle you need to get it done. Pick up the sandpaper, whatever you need to do, get sides. I gotta lift it up like this to do the bottom, so the bottom gets real done, and, yeah, my hands are getting pretty tired. But I finished it up, so here it is finished. If it'll ever focus for you. Don't know how well you can see that, because it's not focusing, but you get the idea. That's what it was. That's what it is. That's very pointy. That's going to work perfect for picking your teeth. It's a nice shape too. So, now it is completely finished. I've seen some people down here at the bottom will put some like gold around it or silver wire around it and put a little string on it or something, but I ain't got the money to do that stuff. Thanks for watching. Bye.